Good afternoon, class. How was your week? Great. Fine. Very busy. Okay. Good. My week was also good. Okay. Today is week 8. We are getting to the end of our session. And we are going to start our reading session with my colleague, Kelly. You all have the test? Okay. Look at the seat. Those who have just come, you put the test there, you take the test, and we are going to start our reading. So I'll give the floor to Kelly. She's going to start.
Okay. So the text today is called A Note on the Crisis in Nepal. The decade-long civil war in Nepal, 1996 to 2006, claimed more than 13,000 lives. The devastating economic consequences destroyed hundreds of thousands more lives in one of the poorest countries in the world. In the remote regions of the country, the Maoist rebels who had taken up arms against the king used intimidation and murder to control villages. They abducted children, forcing them to join the rebel army in the fight against the rural government. Child traffickers, preying on villagers' fears of Maoist abductions, deceived families by promising to take their children to the safety of the Kathmandu Valley, one of the few regions left in Nepal that was still free from Maoist control. For this service, they collected vast sums of impoverished families. The traffickers then abandoned the children in Kathmandu, hundreds of miles away from their villages, mountain villages. These children, who could be as young as 3 years old, effectively became orphans. There are tens of thousands of children still missing in Nepal.
Okay. So this is a reading, and so what we're going to do is read from one student to the other. Yes. For you to deepen your understanding. Okay. So if anyone wants to read, you just raise your hand and you start the reading. We're going to share the reading. It's not long. It's a very short text, so it should be easy for you to understand. Okay, so yes, okay, come on.
A note on the crisis in Nepal. The decade-long civil war in Nepal, 1996-2006, claimed more than 13,000 lives. The devastating economic consequences destroyed hundreds of thousands more lives in one of the poorest countries in the world.
Okay, next person. Yes, Wanda.
In the remote region of the country, the Mars rebels who had taken up arms against the king used intimidation and murder to control villages. They abducted children, forcing them to join the rebel army in the fight against the royal government.
Okay, it's okay. Yes, next in the back.
Child traffickers prey on villagers' fear of Moors abduction, deceived families by promising to take their children to the safety of the Kathmandu Valley, one of the few regions left in Nepal that was still free from Mao's control. For this service, they collected vast sums from impoverished families.
Okay, it's okay. Yes, Wanda.
The traffickers then abandoned the children in Kathmandu, hundreds of miles from their mountain village. Those children who could be as young as 3 years old, effectively became orphans. There are tens of thousands of children still missing in Nepal.
Okay, good. It's okay now? Okay. Is the text understood? Or we have small things inside that we would like to understand more? Okay, so you raise your hand and you ask the question.
The meaning of claim. To claim.
To claim.
What's the sentence? Read the sentence.
The second line.
Oh, claimed. Okay, so in this sense, claimed more than 13,000 lives. It's talking about how the war took so many lives. It claimed. You can't really borrow.
Right.
It claimed. Yes, claimed. So many lives. So, yes. So to claim something is to say it's yours, basically. You can't really borrow something. It's to claim it.
Do you follow?
No? Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay. I claim this piece of paper. I claim this piece of paper. And I claim this pen. This pen and this paper now belong to me. This is in my possession. Is that better? Okay.
It's better. Okay. Any other question? Okay. So the text is well understood. Okay. Before you ask
Questions?
the questions, I would like, if you said it's understood, I would like someone to summarize. Okay? To summarize for those who have just come. Okay? Who want to try to summarize the text? Or should we read it again? No? You want to try? Okay, come on.
Okay, the test is about the civil war in Nepal between 1996 and 2006. 2006, okay? And there were more 13,000 lives lost.
It's okay?
Yes.
Okay. Good. Kelly?
Yes. So we'll go to the questions now. So he just answered the first question, which is, what is the reading about? The reading is about a crisis in Nepal that talks about how the Maoist rebels who want to overthrow the monarchy, the king, the royal family, basically took over the country, and several lives were lost. Child traffickers use this as an advantage to make some extra money. So they would go to these families and say, I will protect your children. I will take them to Kathmandu Valley and they will be safe. Well, they would take the money, they would sign off their guardianship to this man, and then that man would use these children as labor force to build or help in the armies. So they were kind of used in a sense that it was illegal, but in Nepal, they made it legal since they signed their guardianship away to this man. So there are still children missing in Nepal today. This is a huge, problem in Nepal, and I just want to bring it to your attention that there are a lot of things still going on in the world. Because I love telling you about Audrey Hepburn was our last section. She's an actress. I love telling you about movies and inventions, but I also want to bring attention to you certain things that you can help out with too as well. So my first question about the reading is, how long was the war? So, a decade. 10 years. Yes. Okay. Was Nepal considered a poor country? Was Nepal considered a poor country? Yes. Yes, it was. It is one of the poorest countries in the world. All right. What did the child traffickers tell the parents? What did the child traffickers tell the parents of the children?
Come again, or try to explain the question. Maybe it's
Okay, so the child traffickers, to get the kids, they would tell the parents something. What would they tell the parents to receive the children? Yes, sir.
okay.
They promise the parents to take care of the children.
Yes, take their children to safety, to Kathmandu Valley. Kathmandu is the capital of Nepal and was a safe haven. Okay. And do you guys have any further questions about the text? Something you didn't understand fully, something you need help pronouncing, anything? Or like an opinion about the text? What do you think? Do you think this is wrong? Do you think this is right? What can you tell me about the text? Get no feelings about this text? You don't feel anything? Yes, of course.
After the crisis, did the people try to find the children?
So there were volunteers that came from Germany and France and America that came to help volunteer for the children. They would provide clothing, but after the volunteers left, the gentleman would take the clothing and use it for his own family, and the kids would be left with nothing. So there are still organizations today that work to basically get these children, out of the working force and into an orphanage, which is, they still don't have technically families, but they have each other, which I guess is a family. But they are provided more care. They go to school and such. So they're not all still working. Mostly today, the age range is from 10 to 15 years old. And it's usually little girls that are taken away since, men usually can fight back more physically. So right now, there are still 1,160 kids missing today. I just did my research on this because I was like, it says there's children still missing today. I want to know how many. I was expecting like 2, 3, no, thousands of kids.
Are you sure they are still alive?
Oh, well, not sure. Usually they are found still alive. Some of them are working, some of them they just be in these random homes. Some girls are sold away for marriage. So, sometimes you can't find these people because they get moved all the way to the other side of the country. But they do find thousands of kids, but there's still thousands missing.
It's a very sad story. Children are used as soldiers. Not only that, but it is a story, something happening in Asia. Okay? We always thinking that bad things are happening in Africa, but we also have other side of the world where we have things happening in a very worse way. When you are aware of it, you become upset sometimes. But this is the reality, as she's saying. Okay?
One question. I just want to know, what is the major cause of this war?
Major cause. So in Nepal, before the war was settled, they had a monarchy, which means they had a king and a queen. Instead of voting for a president, as we usually have common today.
Democracy.
Now they had these rebels that came together and they were like, we want to vote for who we want our ruler to be. We don't want it to be pre-decided by birth. So they gathered a bunch of people up, got kids to help them. It was men, and then it was women, and then it was children that joined the force to help basically battle the war out. It lasted 10 years, and in 2006 they finally, came to peace when we had end of monarchy, and that's when I think it was communist rule came into play.
What I would like to know, by this time, do we have democracy in Nepal? Or
I
is
think
there-
so. It might still be communist. I'm not too sure, but we can always look it up and see. Because last I heard, because the Maoist rebels, another name for them was the Communist Party of Nepal. And I think that since they kind of won the war, there was communism, but it might be democracy, like you said. But, that's something to consider.
Okay. More question? Is there anything that you would like to know about this story? This is a real fact, something happening, and we still have consequences of this situation now.
Okay.
Mhm.
Can you tell her some economic consequences regarding this country?
Economic. So they would have something, I think it's called bunda, during the war, where basically they would have double the prices. No one was outside because everything was going to be set on fire if they found you outside. Cab drivers, they would kind of sneak out, cover their license plate because they needed the money. That was valuable money they were losing because no one was out. So certain things made the prices go up. There's tons of things that you can look at. Schools were out, so kids were affected. Kids, they love school. In America, we're hoping for snowstorms to get out of school because it's America. They like to have fun. But Nepal, the kids, they really were focused on learning. They love to learn. They made their own toys out of plastic bottles, bamboo, when they're like 3 years old. I mean, it's amazing. So then you see children that are affected because of this. The whole country is affected. Surrounding countries are affected. What about trade? Volunteers that went there, some volunteers would try to help, but then would be threatened and have to leave the country. So there's so many stories about this, and this is actually a introduction, kind of backstory to the Little Princess is the name of the book because of the orphanage that the volunteer works at. He's an Irish and American citizen, I believe. But he came to work in Nepal with the children, and they came attached to him. And when he finds out that the kids are taken or gone missing, he promises to take every single kid back to either an orphanage where they're safer or to their families. So it's really neat, really interesting story that I thought I'd share with you guys. Of course.
Okay. I read somewhere here, the last sentence, the last but one. These children who could be as young as 3 years old, 3 years old, effectively became orphans. Okay. I'm wondering, how could parents leave a child of 3 years old to a rebel? Are they forced to do that? Or?
Yeah, so the child traffickers are not, they could be part of the rebels, but they're not necessarily part of the rebels. They're just men you might even be familiarized with, that you've seen in your village. He's taking a bunch of kids away for safety, and usually the parents, the fathers, are taken out for the war, put into the Royal Army, or the men and women are helping the rebels. Well, they're fighting in this war, they might lose their lives. So distant family members will take the children, and they don't want to care for the children. Sure, you can take them to a safe retreat. So they would sign it off and give their children, not really their children, their family's children off, not knowing if their parents will ever come back. So this was a safer option, and the child traffickers made some money off of it.
That's it. More questions? If you also have questions for them, you can ask.
Well, let's see. Do you think the child traffickers were right to take the children away from their families? I mean, the situations were worse where they were living before, and then they were used for child labor. Do you think they should be working or with their families? Or do you think they should be even in an orphanage?
This could be the subject of your essay.
Mm.
Yeah. The same situation could be compared to those here in Africa, and particularly in Cote d'Ivoire, who are expecting a paradise somewhere, El Dorado in Europe, and going to Libya to cross the sea, to go to Italy or to France or to Spain. This situation could be compared to it. Maybe the family members are well, but here the situation is a little bit different because they have grown up and let's say they are men, so they know what they are doing. They are well taught. Okay, but at the other case, they are kids. But it's not a kid to take the decision. It's the family members who thought that maybe it would be safer for the kids to be with those guys there in Kathmandu, because they'll come and tell them that they are taking the kids for a better life. Okay? Before signing the contract, that's what they tell them. They'll never tell them that we are taking the kids to sell them somewhere. Okay? So this could be a quite similar situation. The thing is, what is the objective? Find a better place. So if I take this aspect, find a better place, find a better job, better living experience, could be something that we can make this kind of comparison. So what do you think about this situation? This is the question she's asking. If you could be the parents of those kids, those children, what would you do in such a situation? This is the question. You raise your hand and they express your idea. Say it and be free, man. Before you write it on your paper, say it here, and we try to correct it together. You raise the hand.
I think that to have children or to have some children is their own property. So it is not good to sell your children even if you are so poor. So if someone proposes you something, I think that you have to think about it, to have a good analysis, to check in order to give an answer. So I think that it is not good. I can't do this.
Okay. Yeah. Madam, you raise your hand.
What I want to say,
Mhm.
I think that the parents don't know that when they send the children is is because the children will go to the army. For them, they want to give the best future for the
course, yeah.
children. So if I was in this case, maybe I will accept. But as I know what is it,
Yeah.
I think that this situation is due to the lack of money.
Mhm.
Because if one parent have enough money to help his children, I don't think that the parent will accept to be separated to his children.
Yeah.
All parent want to have his children with him to see them grow.
Yes.
Thank you.
Very good point.
Okay.
So remember, it's not necessarily the parents that are making the decision. It's their grandparents, distant uncles, people that were just given the children and don't want anything with them. So it wasn't uncommon for the situation. Now, did they know if the children were going to be working? Is a good question to ask, because were they just giving the children up because they didn't want anything to do with them, or did they actually care if they were going to be in a safe environment? So that was a good point that you made, that if you didn't know and you wanted them to have a better life, then you would make the choice. But if you did know, you would rather have them with you.
Good.
Yes.
Question? Yeah.
It's not a question, but what I would like to mention is that as a mother, I would have chosen, I would have behaved like them, because we are talking about safety. It was not a normal situation. It was a war. So most of the time, parents want to protect their children,
Exactly.
and it's the main reason why they gave their children. They were not selling the children, but they were giving those children to be safe somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So they were seated as it said here in the text.
Yes.
It's language.
Yeah, that's another good point. So, plus, although the families were very poor, the children entertained themselves. They made their own toys. They'll be poking each other with sticks. They're playing, swords. Those are swords. And they found stuff to do. But although they could find stuff to do, they weren't getting the education that they kind of wanted or needed because of the wars. So that's another reason why the parents might send them off. Then again, the child traffickers, in this, they said they abandoned the children in Kathmandu, but in the book that this is from, the gentleman, he keeps the children and uses them for labor. Volunteers will bring mattresses, clothing. After the volunteer leaves, he would give that stuff away, sell the mattresses for a chicken, take the clothes, and give it to his own family. But then volunteers came and rescued the children. But because these child traffickers have so many connections, it's really hard to get these children away. And once they get the children away, these men that give the children to the orphanages can also take them away. So it's really stressful on those that are trying to protect the children, trying to be there for the children, and in a blink of the eye, the children could be gone back working. So really stressful situation. It's not as bad per se, but children are still missing. The only thing is we don't know exactly where each child is going. Are they going to work again? Are they being married off? It's something to think about. What other stuff is going on in the world? Is there a similar instance somewhere else in Asia, not in Nepal, but maybe in Tibet, a little farther up? Just something to think about. Think about your surroundings. I did not know exactly where Nepal was located, per se. I knew it was next to Tibet, and Tibet I found was in China. So I was like, okay, it's near China somewhere. But then I look around and I'm like, okay, now I know where Nepal is. Now I get a bigger aspect of, where I am in the world. We're located in Africa. This is in Asia. So it's really neat seeing, where everybody is, what's happening.
Okay.
All right.
It's okay.
Yes.
Good.
Thank you guys.
It's okay. No more questions. Okay. Good. Thank you.
So, one question.
One question about the test.
I just want to be clear.
Okay.
About the dates. I heard from CNN most of the time, 2020 for the coming election in USA. Can we say here 2006? Let's press the date.
2006.
Yeah.
So for 2020, they 2006. I guess you could say that, but usually it's not said like that. They only say 2020 because people without glasses, they have 2020 vision. So 2020 is a common term. So they'll use 2020 election instead of 2020 election. But you can say technically 2006. They'll kind of understand what you're saying, but it's better to say 2006.
Right.
Thank you very much, Kelly.
More extra
Okay.
text if you need it.
Okay, it's the end of our reading session. And let's jump to critical thinking. All the time we used to end by critical thinking, and I ask you to go back on the link and try to review, try to read it. I'm not sure every one of you has the habit to do that. Tell me.
I tried.
Tell me,
tried.
truth talking.
I tried.
I've already read the critical thinking links that I used to give you.
I tried.
You try. One person.
I tried.
4. You try. Okay. 5. 5 persons out of the whole class. Yeah, the question will be asked not to 5 persons, but to the whole class. So please try to read. And let's talk of description versus interpretation, okay, in critical thinking. It's today, this morning, that I sent it because we're going to talk about it, okay? For the first one I sent, I don't know if you went and then collect the information online, but this one I sent it this morning, okay? So we are talking about description against interpretation, okay? It's all about how to observe. We are all in class here, for instance. This is my class, and I could see one of my students, for instance, yelling, okay? Yelling. So when the student is yelling, I could have an idea about that. But this idea that I have, is it the right? Is it the reality? Okay? So from there, if I don't ask the student, why are you yelling? What I would think as a teacher, would be an interpretation of the reality. And this situation happens every day, wherever we are. You are with a friend of yours in a place, a certain place, and the man could make a movement that maybe you will not understand. Instead of asking the person, you begin to think about the situation and try to find, you ask the question and you alone try to give an answer. And what you give as answer is not the reality. It could be, but it's not. It is interpretation. This is all that happened in the world. And the lack of communication is one of the difficulties that we have in our world. If you are living with someone and you are not communicating, I could use the example of a husband and wife. You are not communicating. Any gesture that will come out from your husband or from your wife, if you yourself, you are not asking, you are not courageous to ask your wife or your husband, why are you doing this or that? All the question that you ask and the answer that will be given will be hypothetics, okay? So this happens in all the time in our life. So I was using the first example, like I could have a student there yelling. How could I interpret this? Maybe the student is tired, he didn't have time to rest, okay? He was busy the whole night, he was working, and or maybe he's hungry. He's hungry, and he did not eat before coming since the morning.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is true.
Or maybe he's a fasting. He's a Christian, he's a fasting. So if you are fasting, this is the natural thing. Your body will ask you, okay? So you'll be yelling. Or maybe the fast is butter, okay? I'm talking too much. The guy wants to go back to work. Yes, it does happen. So if I'm not asking the students what is going on, all that I will think will be interpretation. It's what we call description versus interpretation. So for you to make sure that what maybe you are interpreting is exactly is right or is accurate, you have to ask, okay, the person who is making the action to make sure if it is correct, what you are thinking, okay? Good. So maybe, let me take an example. You'll be with your neighbor, and then your neighbor is walking on your toe. You understand toe?
Yeah.
Okay? He's working on your toe, and you react. You could react violently or smoothly, and you didn't ask your neighbor why is he doing so. You could, from there, begin to talk or to react. Okay, the reaction could be violent or, let's say, could be not violent. So, what is the kind of explanation that we could give to this situation? Lack of communication. Okay, so it could be in life, in everyday life. It could also be at your workplace. It could also be at home in the family, where there is no communication. You always have this situation of interpretation versus observation versus description. How to overcome this situation is communication. So, as a critical thinker, educators like teachers always have to, let's say, try to understand every situation that happens. So, for instance, if I ask my friend in the back there, why is he looking at me like that? Is it because of my tie? Or because of what I'm saying is interesting? Okay? Or something else. If I'm not asking, okay, I could interpret. So I'll ask the man and he will tell us. Maybe I'm thinking that the guy, what I'm saying is interesting. Okay? So and then I keep on talking, but the guy is looking at me because he said the teacher is taking too much time. I have to go back to work. Okay, so let's try. My man, tell me, you in the blue shirt there, why are you looking at me? You are fixing me like that. Okay, tell me. This is an example. Okay, what I'm talking of is very interesting. This is critical thinking, okay? So, what I was thinking was accurate, it was the reality. I was thinking that what I was saying was interesting. It's a subject, about critical thinking. What I want to say is critical thinking is something that we have it everywhere. Okay? You as educators, as a father, you educator, you have to think critically. You should not react all the time based on interpretation. This is happening in life. If you react based on interpretation as, let's say, CEO, okay? You used to work according to interpretation, you'll be in trouble in your company. Always you'll be sitting there waiting from people coming to whisper. My boss, this guy is saying this and that, okay? You don't know the reality. You don't even try to check what the guy said, your colleague said, or your employee said. And from what you learn from the other colleague, maybe you are close to him or you're familiar to him, you just take decision. And this puts your company in trouble. You have a problem of management. The same situation could happen in the class. Okay, this is why we have a timekeeper. If my timekeeper is working, he called me, he said he's not coming because we have something there. Okay, he's working, his watch, I'll be there. Oh, my timekeeper is telling me that it's time, but maybe not. Okay, the course is so interesting that you don't want the course to end, so he's watching his watch. Okay, so this is the little thing that I would like us to share. If you want to go deeply, this is the summary of the critical thinking. This is all about. You go on the link, you try to download and you read. You see that critical thinking is something that we need everywhere we are. Okay? If you have a question, ask. No question, we get to our grammar points. And today I want us to listen deeply, the listening part. And I have 2 videos of Edgar Allan Poe. It seems to be something like a movie, but that's what I'm expecting you to hear is the listening part of it. And then I have a second video where we have the script written, and you compare if you have understood the first part, okay? And we discuss the grammar part at the end, okay? The time is on, then you continue on the link there. So let's see. Any question on the critical thinking? No question. Well understood. Thank you very much. Yes. As a teacher, if no question, well understood, or nothing, have been understood. But I could see, yeah, question? Okay, come on, please.
I would like to know if during our final evaluation, critical thinking is going to be part of, the test. I don't know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It could be maybe a case of critical thinking, and not question ask you what is critical thinking, what is description, what is not definition. I could give you definition, but I want you to think critically. So I would like you to share something. Maybe I'll give you a case whereby you have to give your view.
The 1,000 injuries of Fortunato I had borne as best I could. But when he ventured upon insult, I vowed revenge. You who so well know the nature of my soul will not suppose, however, that I gave utterance to a threat. At length I would be avenged. This was a point definitely settled. But the very definitiveness with which it was resolved precluded the idea of risk. I must not only punish, but punish with impunity. Neither by word nor deed had I given Fortunato cause to doubt my goodwill. I continued, as was my wont, to smile in his face, and he did not perceive that my smile now was at the thought of his immolation. He had a weak point, this Fortunato, although in other regards he was a man to be respected, even feared. He prided himself on his connoisseurship in wine.
My dear Fortunato, you are luckily met. How remarkably well you look tonight. Do you see the cask of what passes for a Amontillado? I have my doubts.
Amontillado? A cask? Impossible! And in the middle of carnival!
I have my doubts. Well, I was silly enough to pay the full Amontillado price without consulting you for the matter. You were not to be found when I was fearful of losing a bargain.
Amontillado!
I have my doubts.
Amontillado!
And I'm not satisfied.
Amontillado!
As you are engaged, I am on my way to Lucchese. If anyone has a critical turn, it is he. He will tell me.
Lucchese cannot tell Amontillado from sherry.
Yes, some fools will have it, but his taste is a match for your own.
Come, let us go.
Either
To your vaults.
no, my friend, I will not impose upon your good nature. I perceive you have an engagement.
I have no engagement. Come.
No, my friend. It is not the engagement, but the severe cold which I perceive you are afflicted. The vaults are insufferably damp. They are encrusted with nitre.
But let us go. Nevertheless, the cold is merely nothing. Amontillado. You have been imposed upon. And as for Lucchese, he cannot distinguish sherry from Amontillado.
There were no attendants at home. They had absconded to make merry in honor of the time. I had told them that I should not return until the morning, and had given them explicit orders not to stir from the house. These orders were sufficient, I well knew, to ensure their immediate disappearance as soon as my back was turned.
The Amontillado. Cautious. Be cautious.
No, it is farther on. But observe the white webwork, which gleams from these cavern walls.
Nitre?
Nitre. How long have you had that cough?
It's nothing.
Come, we shall go back. Your health is precious. You are rich, respected, admired, beloved. You are happy, as I once was. You are a man to be missed. It is no matter to me. Come. You will be ill and I cannot be responsible. Besides, there is Lucchese.
Enough. The cough is merely nothing. Kill me. I shall not die of a cough.
True. And indeed, I had no intention of alarming you unnecessarily, but you should use all proper caution. The draft of this Medoc will defend us from the dance, then. Drink.
I drink to the buried that repose around us. And I, to your long life. Sports are extensive. The Montresors are a great and numerous family. I forget your arms. There's a huge human foot of gold on a field of blue. The foot crushes a serpent, rampant, whose fangs are embedded in the heel. And the motto? Nemo me impune lecessit. No one insults me with impunity. Good. The night of sea, it increases, hangs like moss upon the vaults. We are below the river's bed. The drops of moisture trickle among the bones. Come, let us go back ere it is too late. Your call. It's nothing. Let us go on. But first, another draught of the Medoc. You do not comprehend. Not I. Then you are not of the Brotherhood. How? You are not of the Masons. Yes. You. Impossible. Yes. A Mason? Yes. A sign. It is this. You jest. But let us proceed to the Amontillado. Be it so. Proceed. The Amontillado is within. As for Lucchesi, he is an ignoramus. Pass your hand over the wall. You cannot help feeling the nitre. It is indeed very damp. Once more, let me implore you to return. No? Then I must positively leave you. I must first render you all the attentions in my power. The Amontillado! excellent jest. We will have many a rich laugh about it at the palazzo. Over our wine.
Yes, yes. The Amontillado.
Okay. Okay. Who had something? We have a second video, which is the summary of this one. Okay. We have an author who's trying to explain what's going on inside the video with the script for you to understand more. But before that, I would like to know if any of you hear something that you can explain. Apart from Amontillado. Anything that you, I ask you to take note. Okay? Yes, when
What the sentence I have in my mind is drank to a long life. You have to drink to a long life.
Drank to a long life. Okay, that's what Montresor said. Okay. Okay.
I heard something new.
Something new, yes.
I'm not safety.
I'm not safety. Okay. How many actors, the principal actors we have in the text, in the video? Two. Okay. Their names? Okay. They said their name at the beginning of the video. You didn't pay attention. Montresor. Okay. And the other one, Fortunado. Okay. Both of them. So when you look at it, at the end, there's one who is put in the grave, and the guy is behaving like a mason. At the end, the guy is going to die there. Yeah, that's what is going to happen. So what could you imagine about what the guy did? And Montresor, he was the one who put the man inside, yes? Vengeance, a revenge, okay? Okay, and what else? The guy was very cold. He did everything with cold blood, okay? So this is why your colleague is talking about revenge. Okay, who else want to say anything else? Okay, good. So let's see the
Hi, I'm Rebecca Balcarcel. Let's talk about Edgar Allan Poe's short story, The Cask of Amontillado. First of all, what is a cask? It's just a big round barrel of wine, and Amontillado is this special kind of wine that is referred to in the story, with which our main character lures his victim to his death. So let's look at the narrator and how Poe manages to create this voice, Montresor, who is able to manipulate this other man, who is able to kill another man, and all the while have this very calm voice explaining to us how perfectly justified he was in doing these horrible acts. So he starts out with a very confusing sentence. He says, "The 1,000 injuries of Fortunato I had borne as best I could, but when he ventured upon insult, I vowed revenge." Now this sentence is written in an elaborate old style that marks the speaker as a formal man, an educated man. This speaker is meant to be from a respectable family, probably in Italy, and his voice allows us to realize that he is a man of stature and education. So he says, I had borne these 1,000 injuries. Well, what does that mean? It means that this guy Fortunato had insulted him over and over in all these little ways that bothered him, and it escalated, and eventually Fortunato actually insults Montresor, and Montresor takes it so personally that he vows revenge. So he is going to get back at Fortunato for these insults. Now, as we go on, we can see that this man is pretty easy to insult. I would not want to get on his bad side. Perhaps Fortunato insulted Montresor about wine knowledge, like you don't know what you're talking about. I know what I'm talking about when it comes to wine and different fragrances it has or different qualities it has, what year is better than another. These kinds of things might insult Montresor if Fortunato had said, you don't know your wine business. Who knows? We don't really know what kind of insult it was, but he says that it got to be so offensive to his honor that he vowed to get revenge. And he goes on to say that he wants revenge with impunity. Impunity means without punishment. So he wants to get away with his revenge, whatever it'll be. And when we realize that he actually wants to kill Fortunato, we see that he wants to do it in a way that will not cause the police to come arrest him, right? He wants to get away with killing this man, get his revenge, and never suffer any consequences, at least through the legal system. And he says, a wrong is unredressed when retribution overtakes its redresser. So he thinks he's the redresser. He's the one who's going to bring justice to this situation. And if he gets overtaken by the law or arrested, punished, then his justice won't have counted. So he wants his justice to count. He wants to get away with it. Now, he also reveals some of his personality when he says that he did not immediately get back at Fortunato. No, he bides his time. He plays it cool. He smiles to this man.
Good. Do you understand now the story? Okay. Summary. You have understood. That's what you told me. So we can summarize. Okay. The woman has started to explain everything. I think you have the scoop of the story. You have the scoop, so we don't need to go up to the end. You'll finish this at home. But tell me, how could you summarize what the lady said? Yes, in the back there.
The story is about the kind of revenge of the person.
Okay.
The fact that he was always insulted by some workers because he doesn't know, not know so much thing about the wine as him. So this one has decided to get a kind of revenge against him.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Good. Yes, Madam, you want to say something?
Yes, we want to take revenge, but we can't tell exactly whether it's because of lying or something. It's been insulted.
Exactly. That's what the woman was saying. Okay. It could be about wine or something else. He was offended. But the other man, the other actor, Fortunato, did he know that he insulted a guy? Montresor. This is the name of the second actor. The cool man, Montresor. He was very calm and cool, and he wanted to revenge. But the second actor know that he offended him. Yes, sir. You don't think so?
No, we don't think so.
Okay. What shows that? Madam?
Something I want to notice about the man who venged himself. He knows that we have like drinking wine.
Okay.
And he waited the time
Drunk.
yes, and he come at that time because he could not
Realize.
Is yes, you cannot realize what is coming, what will become again, and he goes to he went within slowly, calmly, and giving him wine again,
Yes.
and get his vengeance.
Okay. So what he did, does it show that the guy
And he put it in a prison.
in the prison?
Yes. I
Yes.
think he was behind the wall with a small.
He was building the wall. He was the one building the wall. Okay.
And he left
Okay,
just a
thank you.
small
Because
window.
he asked him if the guy asked him if he's a mason. You know what a mason is?
Yes. You know,
You don't know.
a builder.
A builder? Builder of what?
Houses building?
Wall,
Builder of what?
the houses.
Uh-huh. A carpenter could be also a builder of house. And scaffolder, you know, scaffolds. When we are building house,
Yes.
we used to use iron or maybe woods. You put the woods in the house, okay, where we put the brick on, okay. So scaffolders, they can consider themselves being house builder, okay. So saying mason is a house builder is not sufficient to explain. Who wants to explain what is a mason? Who could be a mason? Vocabulary, mason, what is it? They use mason in the movie. Hey, my class, are you not here? Mason, what is mason? Yeah, I see.
Yeah.
A mason,
Mason is someone who
okay,
you can build a house
okay,
with a brick.
with bricks,
Yes.
okay. Uh-huh, yes, sir.
Mason is someone who build houses.
Build houses, okay. A carpenter is a mason. A carpenter. Building a house, we need carpenter, we need architect.
Yes, I know.
Are they all masons?
Okay.
Raise your hand.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
You can speak to build a house. You can build a house such as log cabin.
Cabin. Okay, you are complicated. The situation. What is log cabin? I myself don't know. What is it, log cabin? Yes, you man.
You can say that the mason is the one who builds our house with bricks or cement.
Cement. Okay, you use bricks and cement to build a house.
Yes.
Yes, it's understandable. Okay, thank you. Okay, more questions? It's interesting, very interesting story. Okay, very interesting story, but we can't finish all today. Okay, we started. The woman gave you the summary, and I will let you go home and try to understand. Let's try to see what we can discuss on our grammar.
Hi there, I'm Claire from English.
Okay. Okay, good. So we're going to discuss conditionals. Okay? Not all the clauses, not all the conditionals, but let's talk of if clauses. You know if clauses?
Yes.
Okay. This is what the most used in when we talk of conditional. What do you know about if clauses? Oh. You have forgotten, but I do know people inside who have. Yes, sir.
Yes, with the if clauses we have two propositions.
Two propositions. Okay. What is it?
The first with the if clause, and the second with how can I say the second proposition.
Second proposition. The first with the if clause, the second with the second proposition.
If clause and
Yes, so raise your hand and speak. Yes, sir.
Yes, and with if clause, we
Yes.
have a different time tense in the same sentence. So we have two propositions.
Two prepositions.
When in the first, for instance, we have the present tense. In the second proposition, we have the future.
Okay, you are talking about the construction, okay, of the if clause. Okay, the context. Can you talk about a little bit about the context? The same person. Someone's in the back. Who else? Yes, sir.
The clauses used in order to express what kind of wish.
Do you hear him?
No.
You hear?
We use if clauses in order to express wishes.
Wishes. Okay, in order to express wishes. Okay. Try to give us an example.
Just like I said, the president, if he was president, then he have
Okay. This is the construction. Give me an example for our understanding. Yes, you want to give an example?
Yes. If I have money,
Yes.
I will buy a car.
If I have money, I will buy a car. Wishes, that's what you said. Present simple. And now you want to say something? Another sentence. With the present? With the past? Okay. Can you explain the context using the past with a condition? Can you explain the context?
If I were you, I would have not said what you said.
I would have not said. If I were you, I would have not said.
Or I wouldn't say.
I wouldn't. I wouldn't say.
To make it short.
I wouldn't say. Okay. Can you explain the context? If I were you, how could you be? Could you be me? This is something impossible. Okay? Impossible. Okay? So to express something impossible or uncertain, we can also use if in the past. Okay? Express it. Okay, let's listen to this woman. She's trying to tell us something about the conditional. We learn more with her.
Home.com. In this video, I want to look at some grammar that can be difficult, and this is how we talk about hypothetical situations. But before I start, if you're new here, please subscribe to my YouTube channel because you get a new video every week, and you can subscribe by clicking that button there. Okay, so let's talk about hypothetical situations, and in particular I want to look at the second and the third conditional. Second conditional. What is the second conditional? If you want to talk about something that you think is unlikely to happen in the future, you can use the second conditional, and this is how we form it. If and past tense, past modal and infinitive. So here's an example. If I had enough money, I would buy a house. Or, I would buy a house if I had enough money. So you've got...
You see here, when she started by if, she didn't put the comma. Okay? It is the same sentence, okay? But two different forms. You can start by if or start by the second preposition. As you said, we have two prepositions. Okay? Good.
Got the past tense had and the past modal would. Okay, you don't always need to use would. So for example, if I had enough money, I could buy a house. Or if I had enough money, I might buy a house. And you can also use the past continuous in the second conditional. So if you were living in London, you could go to the theatre every week. Second conditional for hypothesis. We also use the second conditional to talk about things that are impossible, that they will never happen. But we use it to say what we would do if that situation happened. Here's an example. If I was the Queen, I would change the law. Now, I'm never going to be the Queen. It's completely impossible. But I can still say what I would do if I was in that position. Just one other thing about this if I was. We often use this if I was to give advice. So, if I was you, I would blah blah blah. In British English and in informal English, we use if I was. But for more formal situations and in American English, you need to use if I were. So, if I were you, I would blah blah blah. Third conditional. We use the third conditional to talk about a hypothetical situation which will never happen because this hypothetical situation refers to the past, and of course we can't change the past. So we form it with if and the past perfect, with would, could, might, followed by the perfect infinitive. Here is an example. If I had known the answer, I would have told you. If I had known the answer, I would have told you. So I'm saying that I didn't know the answer, so I didn't tell you. But if that situation had been different, then the result would have been different. Mixed conditionals. A mixed conditional is a mix of the second and the third conditional. And I'm going to give you an example. Imagine that I left my house late this morning, and as a result, I'm now late for a meeting. So I could say, if I hadn't left my house late, I wouldn't be late now. So we're talking about a past situation and saying that if that situation was different, then the present result would also be different. So it's a mix of the past and the present. Here's another example. I studied French at university and I live in France now. If I hadn't studied French at university, I wouldn't be living in France now. So we've got the wouldn't, which is like the second conditional, followed by a continuous infinitive, wouldn't be living. And we say this because if the past was different, so if I didn't study French, then the present would be different. I wouldn't now be living in France. Okay, I hope that's cleared up some of the differences for you between the second and the third conditional. If you would like more free English, please click the link and you can join my email group. Every week you get lots of tips on English speaking, English grammar, vocabulary and pronunciation. Oh, and you also get a little guide to help you learn English fast. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Hi, what size are you looking for?
Okay. Good. Is he okay, or shall we go back to eat again? Thank you, it's not here. It's 2:30. Shall we play it once more? It's okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. The English is very simple. Okay, it's very clear for you. Good. Okay. So I'm coming back once more on it again. I used to send all the resources online. Please take a time, go online, download and read it.
Okay.
Yes. Don't say, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it the next time. The time you realize it's Tuesday and you are here. Okay? Do not procrastinate. You know procrastination?
Yes.
Something you can do it now, You prefer postpone it to the next time. You never do it because you always find a reason not to do this assignment or this homework. So please do that. It left with, I think, 1 week. PIT. Yes. This is week 8. Next course will be week 9. Week 10 is the evaluation.
Don't you add the embassy is closed? The embassy is closed.
No. The course is not closed.
Okay.
We still have our course. Yes, we still have our course. We still have our course.
Okay.
The next one is
No, next Tuesday. We'll let you know.
Okay.
We have to have an idea about it and reconcile because all the evaluations are made the same period, beginner, intermediate, and advanced. So if we keep have a time, we keep on revising, okay? Revising what we did and do more assignments. The middle, let's say it's around the middle of August. Around the middle. So you need to go back to the resources and read them. Okay? Any question? No question? Okay. Excuse me, did you have difficulty before coming here at the main entrance?
No.
Okay. Many people came late today. Is what I'm asking the question.